Welcome back to the Football Terrace, another episode of Straight Facts. I'm joined this afternoon by Jess Black. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I cannot complain. There's lots going on, lots to delve into, lots to talk about today. And I'm looking forward to getting your take on a lot of what's going on in football. Viewers, we're going to take a look at the big Champions League game tonight between City and Paris Saint-Germain. Big talk of a major injury at Chelsea to Ben Chilwell. We're going to look at the title race and a few kind of talking points around it. And of course, a massive focus on Manchester United, the reported chaos around the Mauricio Pochettino to Manchester United that's being reported on this afternoon. A variation of and change in story as things progress and push forward. Viewers, if there's anything you want us to talk about, though, remember, get your comments in, member chats, super chats, and any questions you've got for us, please feel free to do that. Make sure the like button has been smashed as well. Very, very important to the terrace that you do that one. There's a comment here from Jules says, Jess for Midnight Vibes. A lot of people have said to me recently, Jess, I want you to take over KJ's Midnight Vibe show that he isn't doing anymore. Maybe. At least it wouldn't be too late for you at night. Like for you, that'd be about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad of timing. So yeah, maybe we can talk about it, but yeah, I don't know. I
Absolutely.
don't
The
know.
football, I told you before, football terrace community likes a bit of Jess. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. But let's start with this news about Poch and this reported chaos. It's kind of being perceived as chaos at the moment in relation to this. United are looking at interims. Yesterday, they were confident they could get the job done now for Poch. Now it's reported that PSG is saying absolutely not. In fact, today, the breakdown today is interesting. The breakdown started with Rob Dawson saying United have made an approach. It's been turned down. PSG want Poch to force it. Then it went into that isn't true. It's just been rejected until the end of the season. Now it's almost gone into Man United haven't even made an approach because they know PSG won't allow it until the end of the season. None of that makes sense to me because just buy him out his contract if he wants to leave. There's nothing PSG can do. Pay the damn thing off. 10 million quid. They have no say in the matter if Poch wants to leave. And then Samuel Luckhurst, and I'm going to tweeting this out as I say this. Samuel Luckhurst has just said on a podcast that on Poch to Man United, I think it's going to happen. It's just a case of when. And PSG knocking back Man United's inquiry now doesn't mean it's over from what I gather. So Samuel Luckhurst still sounds pretty confident this could happen now. At the same time, United are looking at interim should it not fall through. Like, what's your understanding of it all, Jess? And do you think Man United are doing the right thing by trying to land Poch now? Or do you think they should be focusing more on an interim and maybe reassess the permanent manager come the summer?
Well, I don't really think it's as like convoluted as they're trying to make it seem. When a big club is going through a managerial change, it's a chance for big outlets to get as many clicks as possible. So the more twists and turns that the story has, the better it is. They want to long it out. But I mean, Pochettino is a manager that's in a job right now, so it's always going to be a little bit more difficult to get him out of it. And I there's so many different layers to it because PSG also, if he were to leave midseason, would need a manager as well. And they obviously are not just going to hire any old buddy. They're not necessarily in a crisis. So losing your manager now, you don't really want to have to bring in an interim. So there's a bunch of different layers. And as that's being figured out, news outlets are running with it and try to make it into a telenovela. So I don't really see it as anything but two clubs trying to figure out what they're going to do. Pochettino probably does want to leave, but he would need to force it a little bit, probably because of contractual things. And then PSG need to find a new manager. In regards to Manchester United and should they go for an interim versus a full-time coach, it's one of those where it goes back to not having a contingency plan if and when something doesn't go right with the manager that you have. It really shouldn't be taking this long. There should have been more in place to make it a lot more of a clean break. And they should be in a position to just pay out Pochettino and make it happen. The interim feels a little bit redundant, in my opinion. I feel like your team needs a little bit more stability, and having Carrick, then an interim, then a new manager next season, to me just feels like a lot of
Yeah.
steps when you could just pay out a manager and just get it done. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen that way though, because I could easily see Poch coming in the next couple of weeks.
I agree with you completely. I think the only element here that I look at as a problem or chaos, as in out of the norm, is the fact we're doing all this work now. This should have been happening during that terrible period under Ollie. That it shows for me there wasn't enough planning and talks going on in terms of backing Ollie. It should have been a case of knowing where they were with this, doing that due diligence ahead of time. Everything I've read today, I don't think a single journalist has lied. I believe they're just telling us a brief that a club or an official at a club is given. So have the Times been told by PSG, we're not talking about it into the summer? Yes, most likely. That's exactly what PSG are going to say. It's funny how that came out just after other reports that suggested that Poch has to force the move, which I think came, again, that was the Manchester Evening News and Rob Dawson of Man United's, Man United. That clearly came from Man United. So you almost get in this situation where Man United, the stories are almost the same. There's slight variations to them, like anybody's truth. And the truth and the actual truth is somewhere nearer the middle. I think the line I was told earlier on today is Zidane is blocking this move, not literally saying don't let it happen, but Zidane is who PSG want. They don't want an interim themselves. He is simply stating, Zidane at the minute, he doesn't want to join a club mid-season. He doesn't want the pressure of that. He almost like doesn't want it as a potential smudge on his record. Like last year with Poch, he kind of had that situation where he didn't win the league. But he didn't start the league campaign off, but he still got a lot of bad press for it. So I look at it along. I agree with Samuel Luckhurst 100%. I tweeted earlier on today again, which created a lot of traction my way. I just said that I respect the reports that state PSG are only willing at the end of the campaign, etc. But United just got to buy this out. I said PSG have made an approach to Zidane. This has come from so many credible French journalists. They wouldn't be speaking to Zidane about replacing Poch if there was no willingness to allow this move to happen mid-season. I think everything stated officially by PSG is expected right now, and it's still on. That's just my gut feeling with this. It doesn't mean it won't happen, and that's why I'm really relaxed about Man United talking to intermediaries, because we need to talk to the intermediaries. If Zidane says no to PSG, then becomes highly unlikely we get him. What, we're going to keep Carrick? I hope not. So I've seen a lot of people say that it's a mess that we're talking. The only mess is that we're doing this now. This work should have been done 5, 6, 7 weeks ago. So the practice is fair. It's the timing that's off for me. As people are saying, why are we talking to multiple managers about their availability? Well, we clearly have a number one choice, but what if we can't sign him? You're going to go for nobody. You then have to start working on multiple options now, because let's just say Poch says I'll come in the summer, and by the summer the world changes. He resolves his problem at PSG, wins the Champions League, and then feels like staying. But we've discounted and disregarded every other manager in the marketplace, and now we're left with egg on our face. You can't just do that. So yeah, it doesn't feel like chaos to me. It feels like completely normal. Plus, there's no way PSG on the eve of playing Man City are going to come out with anything other than, no, we're sticking with our manager. They're just not going to do that on a game day for me. So I kind of look at it in a relaxed way. If United do end up with an intermediary, Jess, Valverde seems to be one of the lead candidates now that the club are really speaking to. How do you see that going?
I don't know. I have to be honest, the interim thing is just kind of like you're just looking for somebody to babysit until you get to the end of the season. Do you want somebody that's going to implement something new that needs to be torn up when the next manager comes in? I mean, we all talk about preseasons and things like that, but it's a short amount of time, and if you have somebody that comes in and changes things around, and then you go into the summer, change things around. Manchester United needs stability. They need stability because in reality, you guys can't really miss out on the top four, can you? Can't end up in Europa League next season. So for me, it would be more of a matter of, because to me, what Carrick did yesterday, although it's not ideal to have Carrick at the wheel. Let's be real. But what I kind of told you guys on the Bet Victor show was that all he needed to do was play the players that were obviously not being played because Ole Gunnar was on a trip. That's how I viewed it. I don't think your team needs any more than somebody to say, this is how you do the defensive structure, and play Sancho and Donny van der Beek and drop one of Fred or McTominay. I don't think it's that deep. I think that's enough to get you guys going. So if Carrick could do that, why bring in Valverde, who might have galaxy brain plans of what he wants to do? He doesn't strike me as an interim. He doesn't, so it just feels weird. You need a caretaker and a babysitter. That's basically it. So, yeah, I don't know. The interim thing just feels extra, but like for you, do you feel similarly? Like if Carrick were to just play the right players and get the team to defend decently, would you not be okay with him just staying there until the end of the season if you can't get the right guy? Or do you need to go Carrick, somebody else, somebody else? Like it feels very much a lot.
Great point. I worry about sticking with Carrick, even if these next 2 or 3 results are positive, because he just doesn't have the experience I don't think, to guide Manchester United. Giggs did well. Like when he took care of a few games after David Moyes, as an example. Ljungberg did okay for Arsenal, but you could just tell that these guys are not ready to manage clubs at the level in the Prem. That isn't to say that the appointments after that were good enough, if we're being absolutely honest, but they just weren't of that level. I think an interim is fine. My problem is, again, this interim should have been ready and lined up to sack Ollie. And that's more the issue here. So I think you're right. Now, the question you posed earlier when we were doing prep for the show is, have Man United made a mess of this? Yes, they have. Not in terms of who they're approaching as an interim. Who are you going to get as an interim? Are you actually going to get a better manager than Valverde, who's available to be an interim, who wants to be an interim? So it's actually unlikely. Especially if we do it right and say you are only ever going to be the interim. We have our number 1, number 2 targets, and it will not be you. Even if you win the Prem and the Champions League, I almost want us to be that unyielding in terms of we have a plan as a club and we are going to stick to it. So I agree with you. It's a mess. It's not on who we're looking at and what we're trying to do. It's the timing. We are 6 to 7 weeks behind where we should be. We should have been sacking Ollie on Saturday with somebody ready to go as that interim. But it does now appear, and we've got the proof in the pudding, that we weren't looking to sack him. We only sacked him because of the level of the embarrassment. If we'd have beat Watford and beat Villarreal, he'd be secure now for a good number of weeks.
I think that's obvious, though. I think that's obvious that there was no plan for Ollie to go because they were in bed with him. And like, even when you saw like his exit interview or whatever it was, like that to me showed the level of like jobs for the boys and keeping it in United and all of that that's really going on at that club. And I think it's holding your club back. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
I don't disagree. And I think for me, one of the things I've been very consistent with over the course, I'm always someone that listens to those opinions and says, let's see what happens before I make my mind up. But I don't trust it. I don't trust this football club, and no plan to sack Ollie. You sack him and then you're kind of left twiddling your thumbs. It's why I have no real. It's why when people keep saying, we should get this manager, that manager. It's why Ten Hag is the manager now. I'm losing more and more interest day by day in backing the idea of Ten Hag. Not because he isn't a good enough manager, but he needs that structure behind him. A coaching staff from front to back that play a particular way. The right kind of directors, football and technical directors. We ain't gonna instill that at Man United. We're not gonna bring in the right people to help make that whole kind of Ajax approach come alive. That isn't how he operates. So we need a manager that we think can get the best out of whatever squad is assembled at that time. And I actually think Pochettino is one of the best out there for that particular type of job.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question though? Like, okay, so when I was watching somebody, but like I think it was like Tim Howard and Rebecca Lowe, and some of them were talking about how like, do they believe that backroom staff that's still there from Ollie will get shifted out when a new manager comes in? Or do you think that level of like, okay, we want to keep some of our guys in here is going to stay? What do you think about that? Because Tim Howard was saying that he actually wasn't confident that they would leave. McKenna, Carrick, these guys, like, what do you think about that? Because you have to shift them all out, but do you think that they will go? I mean, a lot of them have signed new contracts, have they not?
They have. I mean, they offered all. This is the thing with the reports, and you have to read what you can read. Some have suggested that Ollie was changing tactics on match day from what the guys were training the team to do. There are other stories that suggest that the board offered Ollie the chance to sack the coaching staff and replace him, and Ollie said no. So both those articles will give contrary opinions to whether they're good or bad coaches. Because if the coaching was good, there's talk about McKenna being like a school head teacher or like a schoolmaster, and the players don't like it. Equally, if we bring a new manager in, say Poch, just use Poch as the sort of yardstick, and they don't allow him to have his own coaching staff, already we're starting off this manager with a handicap. We're not letting him have the coaching staff in that he feels will make him successful. And those are the types of things that our board have done to multiple managers, whether it be giving them players they don't want, whether it's selling or keeping players that they want to move around, or whether it's the coaching staff. And if we end up keeping a lot of the same regime that has just failed for the last 2.5 years, do I then expect as much to change? No. If Mauricio comes in or Ten Hag comes in and they bring in the majority of their coaching staff that they've used and been successful with before, then of course my expectations rise around how we may perform as a club. Now, interestingly, if Poch gets appointed and he interviews the coaching staff and is like, I love McKenna, I think he's amazing, and he brings him in and it kind of gives him a role within his setup, but still brings in 2, 3, 4 of his own people, I'm less stressed about that because it's Poch that's being given that decision. If it's the club, though, that says you're in, but you've got to keep this coaching staff, that is, again, a huge red flag to me that just signifies that we are going to fail again as a club. And I think that sort of stuff is really key to me, how we operate and how we do this. And that's why I think a Ten Hag will struggle, because there isn't the structure in the football brains making the decisions to allow, like the way that Ajax play football. I mean, it's cheesy what I'm about to say, but it is literally total football, quite literally total football. And total football requires football people from front to back and inside out. We don't have that. So it's just, I want it, but it's like getting a Ferrari and putting diesel in it. You're just going to break the damn thing. It isn't going to work. It isn't going to give you its optimum output. And I kind of don't want to see that. So, as I say, the Poch deal's on as far as a lot of people are concerned. It's kind of it can definitely happen. Nobody's too sure when. I think get tonight's game between PSG and Man City out the way, and things may become a little clearer. But in terms of having like faith that we're going to get the appointment done quickly, instill the new manager, get rid of the coaching staff and start to improve, I want all that to happen, but I do not trust this club to get things done. And what's making that feeling more compounded is the way in which we've sacked Ollie. There is no one lined up to be the interim manager at all. And yes, we're working hard to try and get Poch, but we should have known all of this weeks ago. This information that the club's now learning, how are they not done the research into this? If you tell me, look, Terry, I'm going to be leaving your show on Wednesdays in 2 months' time. Before you leave, I've got someone lined up who's ready, that can come in, that's got the same plethora of knowledge and good opinions and everything else as you. I'm not just going to wait.
There's no person like that. That person doesn't exist.
Sorry, apologize. So I'm going to have to find someone that's close to that. But the point is, I'm not going to let you leave and then start looking. If I let you leave, then start looking, it's incompetence in terms of running things. And that's the way Man United are. But viewers, we want your take and opinions. We've got a comment here that says, is the phrase second half comeback? The phrase isn't second half comeback, but thank you. Josh said, I would take Valverde over Poch. He's won the league twice with Barca, managed a big club, managed big ego players, and plays good football. Yeah, what is your take on Valverde, though? Do you think he's a good enough manager yourself?
I mean, I think winning a league title only really, to me, means something in the Premier League for me. And you look at, I know that's like, okay, well, it's difficult to win a league no matter where you are. But for me, it's kind of like in La Liga, especially, it's like a 2-horse race. You have Messi in your team. You're kind of just sweeping people aside. I don't really remember him. What I saw towards the end was they could not wait for that guy to go. Like, I don't know if I have the same, of course you play nice football. You're at Barcelona. So I don't know if it's going to translate to the English Premier League, where it's not a 2-horse race and you have Messi on your team. It's a very, very difficult league. He's been out of work for a while. who else has tried to bring him in? He's been out of work for at least 2 years. At least. Has anybody else come knocking on his door trying to get him to manage a team? So I'm not saying he's bad, probably definitely better than Ollie, but I still think Pochettino, with his experience in the Premier League, is more valuable than Valverde winning La Liga with Messi and co. That's how I kind of see it. So I don't think it's really comparable, but that's just how I view it.
Yeah, I sort of, I don't know enough about him, so it's really hard for me to judge. It's one of those again where I sort of feel a little bit underwhelmed if it was him, and that's just the gut feeling that I have. But I could be wrong. As an interim, I think he's a good level interim because there, like I've said, who else is actually available that's happy to take a job for 6 months with fingers crossed, no chance of securing the job after there, because that's how you want it to be. And no matter how well he does, that's what we've got to not allow ourselves to get gassed over, United fans, is, if Carrick was to do the unthinkable and beat Chelsea at the weekend, celebrate, be happy, but none of this, maybe Carrick's the guy. Slow down. Like, it's so unlikely that Carrick's going to, because if he was the guy and there was a feeling amongst the Man United players and the club and the staff that he was always the guy, that's the story that would have been sold from the first moment. If Ollie was the guy, the real guy, he would have already been on the radar of the club. He would have been linked to the job as the proper manager when Jose was being sacked. Do you get my point? There'll be noise coming out the club that Michael Carrick's amazing, and
it's coming though. If you guys get any sort of decent result at the weekend, it's coming. Like, at least the papers will start selling it. They'll be diving deep into his tactics and how he did this. It's gonna be funny, but I'm
telling you, all that Carrick is going to do different to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, all he's going to do differently is play players in their right positions, pick people on form, and rotate a little bit more. And the one thing that I do believe that Ole was getting wrong is, especially as he started to panic, was suddenly changing systems, or, actually, let's press today. We ain't practiced pressing, we haven't practiced pressing for 3 weeks in training, or maybe not at all. Why are we pressing today? No, let's just do it. I just think if you play how you train, pick the informed players as and where you can, rotate and make substitutions early. Those 3 simple things, the quality of players in the Man United team can yield a few good results because the players are very good. We saw yesterday, what I quite liked about yesterday's game was I celebrated the lineup. I was happy with the rotation. I was happy to see Donny start. But you saw Rashford and Bruno came on and Man United became a much better offensive team. And it was almost like we'll see without those guys in the team, we'll ball out better. And it's like, come on, drop your player agendas. It's not to do, no one individual player is making us overtly better or worse. It's about balance. And I think what I'm hoping Carrick learns from that is play Donny deeper with Bruno in that 10, but you've still got to rotate Bruno. Bruno can't start every game. In Fergie's era, Bruno wouldn't be starting every single game. So everyone, you always use the case in point of your best ever managers. Our best ever manager was Fergie. Fergie would never in a month of Sundays have played Bruno Fernandes in every single game, Wayne Rooney in every single game. He rotated his squads because you're playing in 3 to 4 tournaments a year. Bruno Fernandes, 2 seasons running, has got to March and fallen off a cliff. Why? Because he ain't rotated enough. So all Carrick has to do is the basics, but do not get carried away. The likelihood of him being a first-time managerial genius, sort of Pep Zidane level, the likelihood of that is so low. I've got about as much chance of waking up tomorrow morning and being 6'3". It ain't happening. Do you know what I mean? I take 6 foot to be fair, but it ain't happening. It just
you
ain't.
Guys, we have to do that thing with you where it's like, well, I have to go with somebody else and try to figure it out. We have to do that thing where it's like a little ticker behind the scenes of how many times you say Bruno Fernandes, Bruno Fernandes.
But I'm making I say it a lot, but it's a case in point. It's a case in point. But no, he's key because he, on a real level, I know you're making a joke of it, but he's he's overplayed. Yeah. And every time I say his name, like a beep, 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 that just plays. Stop Terry from saying it, but I hear you on that. We have a super chat here that says, is the phrase success of youth and academy development trusting the youth like the class of 92? Giggs scored his first debut goal in a Manchester derby. John Myrtle deals with youth. It's a very good breakdown and a very good guess. But we will introduce, before we move on to some other subjects today, we will have a little chat now about the Football Terrace competition. And we're actually going to put it up on the screen so you can see a little bit more about it. So as you know, the secret phrase clues are here. Arsenal have a connection. Rivals hate it. When it happens to your club, you love it. Tottenham and Liverpool have big examples of this. The Manchester derby and the name Myrtle. Or Murtar. Everyone, Murtar, I think it's pronounced. They be the clues. They be the clues. If we hit 750 likes on the show, we will give you another one. When I tell you what it is, you're going to go, oh my God, it's so obvious.
Too many clues at this point. It's just like...
That's a lot of clues. It's a lot of clues. Everyone's been hitting that like button. So that's why I've raised the threshold now for the clues that come in, like the number of likes to getting those clues in. We've got a few more super chats here that I've got to do, though. It says, is the phrase lethal weapon? Good guess. It isn't lethal weapon. And I know why you've done lethal weapon. Because of Roger. Man like Danny Glover. Love Danny Glover. Great actor. Is the phrase all or nothing? No, it isn't all or nothing, but thank you very much for guessing. I was really happy yesterday, though, with Sancho as well. With Sancho getting his goal. Very good goal as well. So very good goal, good strike. Hopefully, because he's had a few moments in the last couple of games. So, yeah, I'm hoping for a little bit more from him, if that makes sense now. And hopefully he can start to take that forward. And play. It'll be interesting. It will definitely be interesting to see. Big game tonight, though. It's a weird one. I'm always excited about when PSG play an English team because it makes it a big game. Do you feel with the backdrop of everything going on with Poch, though, it kind of makes it even more interesting? Do you feel like more eyes will be on the game tonight than ever before?
Maybe. I feel like the big draw is just more about Messi and Pep and the fact that these two super teams are going up against each other. I don't know if Poch, like, in what's going on, I don't know if that's really going to make people like really tune in to this game more, but it is always a big matchup. And, you know, I would expect both teams to go all out. I think we've been waiting to see both teams play against each other and it be somewhat of like a big, like, you know, I don't know what to call it, but last time it kind of felt like Manchester City lacked the striker and PSG just kind of scored 2 goals and it was over. So I'm hoping for somewhat of a big clash where both teams are playing at their absolute like top level and we get what's on paper I want to see in front of my eyes. I don't know if we'll get that. But maybe more people will be looking at the game, maybe to see what Poch is doing with that team and all of that. I still think it's a group of individuals. Hard to see what Pochettino is really trying to get across with that group. I think if you want to know what Pochettino does, might want to look back and see what he did with Spurs. I feel like that's more of an indication of his level of coaching. But yeah, a big game and hoping for more of a contest. I know Man City played well in the first leg, but it still kind of felt like they just lacked the striker and PSG came down and scored a couple goals and it was done, you know?
Yeah, I kind of disagree slightly. I do think more people are going to... Sorry for disagreeing. It's always going to be big, but I think a lot of people will be looking at it. And what you will see on Twitter, if PSG are doing well, will be this, oh, they could do that with our team. And, oh, we need this here. There'll be that element tonight that would normally be missing. Equally, rivals are going to be watching and maybe going, oh, please Pep spank them up, because then we can say, oh, that's who you're getting as your manager. Who
has time for that?
Football Twitter does. Football Twitter has a lot of time for this. And
but when you said, like, are more people going to watch it, I forgot about the Man United fans. Yeah, you guys will.
The biggest, and I'm talking about you guys. And we are the biggest fan base in the world, so there is going to be more eyes on it, like 100%.
I was like, no, I don't think so.
No, but I think Arsenal and Liverpool fans will tune in, and it's everyone's. The United fans want this positive thing to happen, so they can say, please, Woodward, go sign him up. Rivals want it to be a whitewash tonight, and for City to play him off the park to go, Bruv, if he can't do it with Messi and Neymar, what's he going to do with man like McFred? So I kind of feel
Oh my
that's coming
goodness,
tonight.
that's so
That's coming tonight.
lame. Like, we all know
No,
that Pochettino is a good manager, and if he comes
yeah.
into Man United, he's going to improve you guys. There will always be questions about what his level is, but like, if City spank PSG, I don't think that's like we're sitting there like, oh, that's the like there are some people that are doing it, but it's so lame, you guys. It's
No,
so
I
lame.
hear you. Yeah, but that's like look at United's way. Two managers have been approached by the media and said and asked questions of would you take the vacant Man United job? They've gone, no, we're dedicated to the countries we're currently managing. Oh, you've been rejected. That's football fans. And it's like, it's never going to change. It's never going to change to people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a madness to me. And look, there is reports that United have approached Roberto Mancini and he has said no. And you can call that a rejection. Again, it's interesting that people want to call that a rejection. I can't call that a rejection. If you've made an inquiry and they say I'm not interested, I'm happy for it to be called a rejection. The same as, but they remember in the summer when it comes to transfers, and I'm like, yeah, you spoke to the intermediary, and they said no, no official talks happened, so it didn't. And that's also part of today's stories around Poch. Everything's a protector for every party. Man United can officially say we haven't approached anyone. Show us like no, we haven't. That's now being pushed by a lot of credibles that United have made no approach as of this time. PSG are saying we're not entertaining it. What will end up happening if it goes through is PSG will just turn around and go, he forced the move. They bought him out the contract. Our hands were tied. Do you get what I mean? And if Man United don't get him, it will just be kind of our hands were tied. He's under a contract. He's a loyal manager. He didn't want to leave at this point. That's just, we know what's going to be said. That's why like some of these updates you get is sort of like, what have I learned new here? Did anybody expect Poch in his interview to be like, I'd leave tomorrow, mate. I'd leave tomorrow. What are you expecting? And the only time I would say I trust what the manager says in those press conferences is if they come out and say, even if I get sacked, I'm not joining Man United. Categorically, I'm not going to be the Man United manager. Then I believe it more. But these kinds of
Well,
loose,
they rarely say I'd never or anything. It's I'm happy where I am. I'm focused on this because you can't tell your employer that you're dying to leave. You can't say that. You can't be sitting there, you know, with
no,
like PSG behind
exactly.
you and like I can't wait to get out of here. Like you
Exactly.
can't do
And,
that.
and and the thing is, if somebody tweets me or messages me, have you seen what so and so said in their press conference? You can almost certainly repeat it. Fabrizio tweeted earlier actually saying Luis Enrique won't be involved in any talks with Man United. He's only planning for the World Cup with Spain, and he's going to challenge and he's not going to change his mind. Sevilla manager, what's his name? Lopetegui.
Lopetegui.
Yes, him is also denied United job chances. It seems absurd to me. He's literally saying like the Sevilla manager said, it seems absurd that they would come looking for me. People have twisted that into he's rejected you. Like that's what I mean by tonight's game. More people are going to focus on the Man United element on Twitter than the City element. I'd bet you, if you wanted to have £100 bet, I bet you see more tweets slandering Man United. Or if it goes well for Poch, United fans getting overtly giddy about what might happen. Just football Twitter is a madness. But in terms of the game tonight, like back to that game, yeah, I kind of feel like it's going to be such an exciting one as well. You know, teams generally win their groups. And, we asked everybody on the BV show Monday night, are you desperate for your team to win the group? And everybody was like, yes, we want to win it. So it seems like that's still the case with a lot of people and a lot of fans. So I'm really intrigued to see, the way City play. They weren't very good in Paris. This is the tournament, though. They have to win this Champions League. And I think, qualifying top of the group, ensuring they don't they don't want to end up with a horrible tie in that next round and going out early because the pressure's mounting
Yeah.
on Pep in this competition. It's really mounting.
Yeah, it really is. And, the first couple times that we spoke about it, most people were saying the two teams that had the best chance of winning were PSG and Man City. On paper, that's what you would think. But when we'll probably get onto it, but when you watch Chelsea demolish Juventus the way that they did, you can see that there is a level of competitiveness and cohesiveness and aggression and just form that Chelsea are in, that when I watch City play, I'm not sure I see the same. Now, Juventus and PSG are two completely different animals, but Man City, I'm looking to see how Pep solves the issue of when they play against good teams, are they going to score goals? They really struggled in Paris to have any centrality whatsoever. PSG pushed them out to the wings, and you saw Sterling and Bernardo Silva trying to head the ball in the back of the net, and they just couldn't get it done. PSG come down two times and score, and that's the level of quality that they have. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But personally, like when I look at everybody that's in the Champions League, I cannot look past Chelsea. And I'm sure that we'll talk about it a little bit more, but to me, they could win the Premier League and the Champions League. And it would be like, they're the only team I've seen that's showing that level. Like, I don't see anybody with that level at all.
Yeah. The consistency from Chelsea at this moment in time is brilliant. The balance, the consistency, they're getting better going forward, which I think in the early part of the campaign, even Chelsea fans would say, we've got to get a bit better in front of goal, start scoring more. The fluidity is into that element of the game. We've got to remember, they are still only 11 months into Thomas Tuchel being here. They still
And
have
they're
a
better.
squad.
They're better.
And they're getting it, and the trajectory keeps getting better. They didn't win the Champions League and rest on their laurels. The youngsters, the development of Reece James, and I see a lot of slander towards Reece James because it's this polarized world we live in. This binary world that we're suddenly in when it comes to football. Of I think Trent's better and he's better technically, therefore I don't rate Reece James. Reece James, forget Trent. Just take Trent out of this for a minute because I think Trent, by the way, is world class. He's brilliant. Reece James, as a defender, is impeccable. Can play centre back, right wing back. Technically, is as gifted as he can play.
CDM as well.
He's got this technical ability. He's got a great football brain, and he's now adding output to his game. That development in the last 11 months or so under Tuchel has been amazing. Hudson-Odoi is now delivering. He had all this technical ability, all the wonder in his feet, and he wasn't able to translate that into output. And what I love about him now, he's delivering in games, he's being dangerous, but he's adding the output. And suddenly everyone's like, oh, he's a player now. So he's becoming a player now because the output is there. When you're an attacker, I don't care for the step overs and the tricks and the flicks. If there's no output at the end of all of that, especially when you're at a club that is brilliant, there's nothing you can say. What Tuchel has developed there is something amazing. And I think Tuchel's ability to change, not so much his style, but to rotate and adapt, and the way he maybe plays against Juve, then the way he plays against Liverpool is slightly different to how he approaches a game against Burnley. I think he's getting that balance so right. It's a difference. It's why, for me, Chelsea are the champions elect in the Premier League. I think they are the outright favourites now to win the Prem. And I wouldn't look past them defending their Champions League title and becoming the first English team ever in the Champions League / Premier League era to win it back to back. I think they've got such a good chance.
Yeah,
Such a good chance.
They were killing Juventus, who let's be real, like they're not going through a great time, but they have a manager that people really think is great, and they have some great players. Like let's call it how it is. They killed them, and then they panned up to the stands. Lukaku is on the bench. He's not playing. Kovacic, didn't play. Havertz didn't play. So the level of depth that they have is very, very good. The players are improving. And when I watch them play, we kind of talked about this yesterday, is the efficiency. It's not flamboyant. It's not flary. It's not anything that's going to but they're so efficient, and you can't take the ball off of them. Their ability to keep the ball from you is up there with the way that Man City can keep the ball from you. And I don't think people give them enough credit for the technical ability that they have on the ball. They're not just a team that sits in a low block and plays a 3-4-3 and just kind of sits tight and then counters. They have possession. That's very rare to find. So, and Reece James to me is he's a special player because of what he has as physical attributes. You rarely find people with that
Mm.
level of like physical stature that can also play. See Traore, um, you know, but the way he strikes the ball, the way that he's improving game on game, the two-wayness about the way that he plays, like he's very special. At this moment in time, I feel very comfortable saying that if I had to choose one of him and Trent, I would choose him. He's a special player. Like, and Trent is amazing, but Reece James I've never seen a player like this before. So yeah, it's very interesting.
It certainly is. Neeks here in the comments says Juve
Uh-oh.
are 8th in Serie A, worse than Barca right now. Look, and I think that's a fair point. But last night was just another example of the brilliance of Chelsea. If you actually look over I'm looking. Someone said to me yesterday, I said they're the best team in Europe right now, or maybe the world. If you're the best team in Europe, you're the best team in the world, in my opinion. So the best team in the world right now is Chelsea. So Bayern Munich, they're forming the Champions League's been better. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm looking at the calendar year. In this last calendar year, no team, in my opinion, in Europe has been more consistent and better than Chelsea. 31 clean sheets out of 50 games, only 24 goals conceded, Champions League winners, top of, forget like, we've been the most popular league for 25 years. I would say right now, the English Premier League is the strongest league. If you look in the last 2 or 3 seasons, how deep English teams have gone in both the Europa and in the Champions League, I think we're in a period where we have the strongest league in general. They're top of that league and they're killing it in the Champions League. And I still think they've got room to get better. That's the scary thing with Chelsea. I still think there's another level for them to go. And, we're speaking about like Man City and Paris Saint-Germain. Like the pressure, though, on City to win this Champions League is huge. It's massive because in this little era where them and Liverpool have gone toe-to-toe, Liverpool have a Prem in the Champions League. Yes, they trounce Liverpool in terms of domestic success in that time period, but they don't have that Champions League. Chelsea have now come back to the boil. They won a Champions League instantly. They could win a Premier League this year. You have to add Champions Leagues into that mix. You're talking about the premier competition for European football. All the domestic trophies in the world are great, and they're growing in stature every year, Man City. I'm taking nothing away from them. I'm now splitting hairs at the elite end of the table. Your fan base having a massive fan base is important. Global fan base is huge. The amount of league titles you've got, all these things are massively important. But when you suddenly sit there and you've got all the biggest teams in your country lined up, Champions Leagues play a huge, huge part in that. And as a Man United fan, when I look at Liverpool, one thing that irks me and gets under my skin is they've got double the Champions Leagues we have. And every season I'm fearful of them winning one because it's another, the rate we win them, which isn't very often in our history, I could be dead by the time we catch that up. And I'm desperate for, I tell you, what I wouldn't give to have a 3 or 4 year period where you win a couple. So you think, right, we're suddenly won. And we almost had that where we won it in 2008 and then we got into 2 more finals. And I wanted to win those finals to have good seasons. But I was also, and that's why I don't like people that want to ignore history in football, because it irks me, because I wanted those 2 victories. So at the time, we would have been one, if not level, with Liverpool's 5 that they had at the time. And if we'd have won those 2 finals, we'd have had 5 Champions League. We'd have been neck and neck with Liverpool. What that does for the debate of biggest and or most successful team is gargantuan, and I think you need them. And that's why I think the pressure is going to start to mount on Pep, because we know Pep's gone in there to do that. And a defeat tonight doesn't stop him winning the Champions League this year. It could just make it a lot harder. If they get Bayern Munich in the next round, with their Champions League pedigree as an example, it makes it harder because the pressure's mounting in a different way to what it does at Liverpool and Chelsea right now. So I think tonight's a really important game for City to ensure they can get themselves top of that group, ensuring that they're more likely to get a simplistic tie to get through to the latter stages of the Champions League knockouts,
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I hear what Neeks is saying about Juventus being 8th in Serie A. I get that, but we know that they're underperforming, and it's not that they don't have players that can hurt you. It's very rare in the Champions League, unless you're one of the top teams, that you dismantle another one of the best teams in another league. It's only Bayern Munich is really doing that right now. I think they've killed a couple of teams in the Champions League. So it's rare. They lost the last leg and they made a point to smash Juventus into the ground. that's one thing that I've seen about Tuchel as well, is that they make it a point that if they slip up, it doesn't become something that manifests and keeps going. And so I think that's a strength in their mentality. It's just, I don't know how you can watch this team and look past them or not put them at the top of the list for Champions League and Premier League, and they have enough depth and quality to go very far in both. So I don't really see, why it wouldn't be why it'd be so far fetched that they could do really well in both. But I did want to ask you, like, Klopp, what does he have? Like 2 Champions Leagues under his belt right now, one with Dortmund and one
No,
with
no, no, no. What one? He lost the
just
final with
one.
Dortmund. Just one.
He lost the final, and then he has 1 Premier League.
Hmm.
If Tuchel were to win the Champions League again or the Premier League, where do you kind of rank them? Tuchel will have done it in a shorter period of time, really. You could look at the finances of both clubs and say that maybe Klopp, had to take the long way round. But there's this thing with Tuchel where it's like he's the new kid on the block. All he has to do really for me is win one more major trophy in the Premier League or the Champions League, and we can go ahead and just put him into that next category. What do you think about the comparison between the two, the differences between the two, and how quickly Tuchel has kind of risen to that? He still has to win, but
Yeah.
I would put money that he wins one of those. Money on it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think they've got every chance of doing it. I think, look, if he was to win back-to-back Champions Leagues, that elevates Tuchel's status in the game of football to another echelon within the he's already a manager that you start to talk about. Once you've won a Champions League and I think he's won back-to-back league titles, but he did that in France. So I'm being really honest here. Winning the league with France doesn't really count for much. You've got Mauricio Pochettino that reportedly would be willing to leave PSG now to go to Man United because he sees that as something that can grow his legacy and be more beneficial to his career than winning league titles in France. So the fact that Klopp has back-to-back league titles in Germany, a superior league to France, and one in the Prem, those 3 are huge for him right now. And he has that Champions League and back-to-back finals. If Thomas Tuchel, though, was to win back-to-back Champions Leagues and the Premier League this year, you suddenly start to look at it and go, doing it back-to-back is absolutely massive. And if he was to win a Premier League, Champions League double in one season, again, he would only Sir Alex Ferguson has done that in the Premier League era. And not very many managers in the history of English football have done that. I would assume, I know Bob Paisley's done it. So Matt Busby didn't do it. I know that when we won the Champions League or the European Cup as it was back then, I believe that same season Man City won the league in England in 1968. I'm not sure if Bill Shankly did it. I'm not sure if not an for. I'd have to go and check. But you're still probably talking no more than 3 to 4 managers have ever done that where they've won their league title and their Champions League. Because doing that means you've got to do, back in the olden days, that meant you have to win the league 2 years running, which is also hard, and a Champions League. So it would be a huge achievement. And I think it becomes a really good debate. I think Tuchel still then needs another league title because Klopp has 3 major league titles, if that made sense, like superior leagues. I don't know what the word for it is, but big league titles. He needs to be equal in that. But to win back-to-back Champions Leagues, how many managers have done that? Like 2 or 3 ever in the history of football? So you suddenly have an achievement which is so huge. It's so huge. It's unbelievable. So I think that debate could happen. Some will say, yeah, Tuchel's in front. I get the argument that Klopp's done it with a squad that wasn't as good as where Tuchel's is when he came in. But I mean, Thomas Tuchel would then be knocking on the door of greatness doing that, especially in this era as well, he really would.
And it's the level of competition. Klopp and Pep have been really only fighting against each other for the last couple of years. Tuchel, to overtake either of them in either competition, for me, like, you have to start talking about him in that. And like, I was like a huge Tuchel hater. Like, of course, when Arsenal were lightly linked with him, I was one of those sitting there like, oh no, he's not gonna be he doesn't fit. How dumb. How dumb. I have to definitely sit there and take that L. That guy is crazy. He's crazy. That team is crazy. So they're going to win something this year. I put
Oh,
money on him.
without a doubt. And look, the debate, he's got to win that. The debate of whether you'd put him in front of Klopp or not, let's wait until the end. Let's see how he does it, who they beat. All these things play. But you're right. Winning the Premier League this year, if you look at the last 4 or 5 years when City and Liverpool have been winning it, I can almost guarantee Liverpool and Chelsea fans something. A lot of the times when Man United won titles, when I was most proud, I've never once, and I talk about things that become new in football. I took a big L the other day actually in a space because I never remembered as a youngster people referring to a treble or being anything other than the treble. I still kind of stand by what I said to a degree. It wasn't something people threw about, if that made sense. It may have been referred to, but I just don't ever remember it coming up in debates on television or anything. But I stand corrected that in a paper in 1984, they referred to it as the first club to do a treble. But my point is this. I've very rarely heard people growing up again talk about points totals, clean sheets, goals scored when it comes to winning titles. What people tended to focus on was how difficult it was to win the league that year. So we beat one of the greatest Arsenal sides ever to the league title in 1999, with other people being like other really good teams in the league as well. That was what was satisfying. It was beating that very good team to winning the league title. Chelsea beating the Invincibles to the league title was more, again, all I remember at the time listening to and hearing and feeling was we just beat the Invincibles to the league title. Yes, we've got lots of points and what a great defensive record we had, but the achievement was knocking you guys off of that throne. Does that make sense? It wasn't always because no one sat there and was like, got to win the league title this year, but we've got to do it at 95 points, otherwise I'm not going to be happy. It was always, who do we have to beat, right? So this year, and again, I'm saying this is no salt coming into this, but this is real. I'm not talking about my club. I almost guarantee this year with Chelsea being so good, Liverpool still being brilliant, City still being brilliant, whichever one of those teams wins it, this season is going to feel like one of the most satisfying league titles that those clubs have ever won. And it won't be because of the goals they scored or the clean sheets they have or the points they generate as the reason. It will be, look at the quality of teams we have just beaten. Look what we did. And if you add multiple success on top of that. So Chelsea do a Premier League, Champions League double, but still and fend off the quality that's in the league right now. That will be in my opinion, for Chelsea, would be the single greatest achievement in the history of their football club. They would never have had a season before where they've had so many teams that are good enough to win the league and Champions League in the league at the same time. And it was a multiple trophy winning season. It's such an amazing season that hasn't really been spoken about enough yet. Maybe it's a little bit too early in the campaign for these conversations.
I
but
just
it's
wanted
huge.
to bring it up. It's definitely a little bit too early. Things can change. We know Man City and Liverpool, and that's the thing in the chat. If you're like, how dare they act like Man City and Liverpool or nothing? That's not what it is. It's literally that I'm looking at a Chelsea team that you cannot look away from and say that you cannot see them. You're lying to yourself if you're saying that you can't see them at this point when in Champions League or the Premier League, if not both. And against Man City at the level that they are, Liverpool at the level that they are, you would have to put this Chelsea team up there as one of the best teams that you've ever seen.
And you know
that's all I'm saying.
And you know what I would say? People are polarized. People are polarized now, and they don't look at it. I would love to be in Liverpool or City's position right now with everybody praising Chelsea. Do you know why? Because if you do overtake them and beat them, exactly. You've just beaten a really good team. And if everybody's saying they're better than you, go, right, let's embrace that. I would love to be in that situation as well. It's not an insult. Liverpool and City are amazing. I just think right now Chelsea are marginally better. That's why the winner of this league title, this reminds me of some of those seasons between kind of 04 and 2011, 2012, where you had like Arsenal was still a very good team for large parts of that, where you had Arsenal, you had Liverpool, especially under Rafa, become an excellent team, and you had Chelsea and Man United. It was the dawn of the phrase "the top four" for a reason. You had the mid to late 90s. You had Newcastle that were a very good team. Okay, you had the likes of Aston Villa and Leeds in that time period had very good teams at times. Arsenal under Wenger. A lot of Arsenal fans sometimes say that kind of late 90s was some of those teams were actually better than the Invincibles, even though they didn't go a season unbeaten, won the double in that time.
They were.
Like, that era was like, you didn't go into those seasons. People predicted Man United to win, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion. Some of those seasons felt more I preferred some of those seasons to years where we won the league at a canter. When we won the league in 2001, as an example, it was so easy. I kind of switched off. It was like, oh, it's great,
Yeah.
but you do because it's easy. It's a bit like you sometimes see it with fighters. A fighter will get in the ring with an inferior fighter, and the fight's boring because the guy doesn't even take it that seriously because he can just jab the head off the guy, doesn't need to put the energy. When it's two elite fighters that go into the ring, the excitement is up there because it's like, wow, anyone can do it. It's so much more satisfying, and I feel like that's what's. It's not really been spoken about much this season yet, and maybe we'll get to the kind of December, January time, maybe February, and it will start to really accelerate. But a team has an opportunity to win a legendary Premier League season, win a season where there's very rarely there are three teams that can win it, and there is this year. And it's just a shame a certain other club wasn't good enough to be able to add a fourth team to that because it would have made it even bigger and even greater and even better. But viewers, we do want your views, we do want your opinions on what's just been discussed. Making sure those like buttons are being smashed. I've got a super chat here. There's nothing on it. Super sticker from Kevin. Thank you very much, my friend. He hasn't said anything, but thank you very much for the sticker. Josh says Bayern Munich are still the best team in the world. Have better form than Chelsea since Tuchel's been there. Chelsea fans are scared to play them.
Now that's a matchup I do want to see. I do want to see that for sure. I have not turned a blind eye to Bayern Munich. They're definitely doing things. But again, better form when you when you include that from the Bundesliga, which is a one-horse race, generally, you have to look at it a little bit differently. But I would love to see that matchup.
Someone here says history someone here says history channel settings. Look, the reason I spoke, it's cool, but history is important in football. You know, it's mad how sometimes we want to remove history and then sometimes we want to add history. And we're talking about legacy. We're not talking about who the best team in the league this year is. We're talking about legacy here. If you remove history, then you don't care about legacy. If you don't care about history, then I never want to hear anyone ever defend Thierry Henry again, because what he did is historic, right? It's like saying what Henry did doesn't matter anymore because it happened 15, 20 years ago. Of course it matters. You know, he is still the benchmark if you want to become regarded as one of the greatest player in the Premier League. You can't suddenly go, it was too long ago, we don't care anymore. It exists for a reason.
Yeah, let's be real. You have a Man United fan and an Arsenal fan, and let's be real. All we have to talk about is history, don't we?
And you look, we do, but you want to get back to it. Neeks here says this: 07-08 was a great season. United, Chelsea, and Arsenal all in the title race. Title won on the last day of the season, and all English final won on penalties as well. And that's the point.
Very good point.
Those seasons were they were epic because every game mattered. And I feel like this season is more than ever. We have a super chat here that says Wenger said his favorite season in his managerial career was the 98-99 season, and it was because Man United were brilliant, and that for me was Arsenal's best team in the Premier League era. And you were double winners, winning a double in the 90s. I can't even tell you what that meant. It was gargantuan to do a double. It was just everywhere. And I always remember Man United did a double. I want to say we did the double the year before that. It might have been 2 years before that. And then I remember the Premier League doing like its big opening graphics for the start of the season, and it was like players and managers saying things that they kind of wanted to achieve this year, and it was staying up and getting the golden boot again. And it come to Fergie's, and obviously my house was full of Gooners, Spurs, and Liverpool fans, and it come to we'd just done the double. We'd done the double. So I think we were the first team, and I might get this wrong, to do the double twice. So this whole big thing in the mid-90s was the double. And this is how I know the treble talk was different. Nobody was like, can Man United do a treble? The talk was, they've done the double now. Almost in the space of 2 very short seasons. Within like 3 years, we did the double. The talk was then, can Man United now do the treble? That's why I believe what I believed. I was very young then, so I'm always open to being educated. And it was the way it was being pushed. And it came to Fergie, and he said, this season's about the treble. And everyone in my house was like, oh, shut up. No one's doing the treble. That was the point. It was like, no one's doing the treble. It's impossible. And that season there that you're talking about in the 97-98 one, that was the era where Fergie that's every season. It was, is Fergie going to do the treble? And you guys had just done the double. And it was like, well, what if Arsenal, I remember a pundit on TV, what if Arsenal do the double first? Because you guys were regarded better than us going into the start of that season. And it was, but the point is, when we won everything that year, You guys being so good made it sweeter. If there was no one, if we'd have walked away with the league by 30, 40 points and there was no one that could touch us, of course you would still celebrate it. But it just matters more when you beat legitimate
Yeah,
elite
of
level
course.
opponents, you know?
That's why I'm hoping that nobody drops off. In Liverpool, Chelsea, and like it would be fun if Man United could try to push a little bit. It's just more fun that way. It's more fun when people are more competitive. It's not fun when one team just runs away with it. So, yeah, as a spectator, as I was a bad kind of spectator,
Yeah,
I want to see it go down to the wire.
and we are spectators of that, but I'm also talking from a point of view of experience of being a fan that's witnessed winning league titles in. I guarantee you, Man City fans, the Centurions are amazing, but beating Liverpool to the title when they were 1 point behind you in the high 90s, it'd have a different feeling to it because you're being
Yeah.
chased by somebody, and that chase. It's amazing being the best team, superior team, and winning it with ease. Being chased and winning it's a different. As a fan, anyway, it feels different. Chelsea's Euro best, not world best yet. Yeah, but the European teams are the best in the world. So for me, if you're the best team in Europe, you're the best team in the world, in my view. Without his PSG League One experience, Tuchel doesn't shine with Chelsea. I hear that. I'm not suggesting his experience there hasn't made him better. There's no doubt. Is the phrase buying rejects? No, it isn't buying rejects. He's got a prediction here of 3-1. That's the 3-1 there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into the quick fire round now on the terrace. So me and Jess are going to throw a few quick questions at each other for quick answers. If you want to ask any, get your super chats in and get your member chats in as well. But it's time for the quick fire round on the football terrace. So my first question, I'm going to give you the question first this week. And I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you a Man United question. Should the first job of the new permanent Man United manager be to strip Harry Maguire's captaincy?
The first job, it's got to, maybe it's one of the first jobs. This is an odd question because I'm like, yeah, I mean, you have enough. Okay, so here's yeah. Harry Maguire would perform a lot better without the captaincy. And he's a very good center back that is being held down by that captaincy. He's not anywhere near mentally strong enough to be the captain of that team. And you could tell it's squashing him. So you have Bruno, you have Ronaldo. Those players, you could give it to one of them. You could give it to De Gea. Give it to one of your players that's been there and done that. But he has shown on multiple occasions, in my opinion, that he can't hack it. And I think there's a reason why he performs maybe better for England and maybe performed a little bit better at Leicester. He was not the guy. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's squeezing his brain, Terry. I think it's just, it just is. Because he is good, but he's a nice ball playing center back that is not that guy. I call him a beta. There's alphas and betas. I think he needs to follow the alpha, and that doesn't mean that he's not a good player. So yeah, maybe.
I agree completely, and I think it's got to be handled in the right way. And my question was a little bit, maybe a little bit too assertive in should they strip him of the captaincy? I think the captaincy should be up for grabs. And the manager should look to find someone new. Now, if the new manager comes in and is impressed with Maguire and actually thinks he's a good leader, maybe this whole thing was just system issues and it was Ollie and it resolves itself. A lot of Man United fans said after the last game we were much more organised. We looked a lot better. We still got exposed at a few moments where we got caught out of positions and stuff. But I'd be happy. For me, I look at it this way: you don't need the armband to be a captain. You can be the captain without the armband, but I think the person that wears it has to be able to handle that spotlight on them. And I think at Man United, it's huge. And we make a big song and dance about it in this country. The media do, the pundits do, fans do, social media does. And I think that big highlight on Maguire I think it's taken 10, 20% away from his game. I would take it away from him personally and give it to somebody new. And not because he's a bad player, just because I think it's drowning him.
Ever since Aubameyang has become the captain, he's been half the player that he was. Aubameyang is a goal scorer. He's not a leader. I don't care how old he is. I don't care how much he's getting paid. there is something with the big clubs that have had iconic captains over the years, where you give it to somebody who doesn't quite have the balls to wear it. Like they just kind of capitulate. And I just feel I see very big similarities where two really good players have the armbands and don't deserve them. And then you have somebody else running around that probably should be the captain. And I feel like that's just doesn't make sense. Just give it to Bruno. Is he not the captain of your team? Like he is, isn't he? Like he is.
But exactly, I feel like he would. I personally, I think Bruno, I think Ronaldo in the short term. I think they're better. They give me better leader vibes. As an example, I personally, I would have gone for Paul Pogba. I actually think Paul Pogba, it could elevate and level out his performances. I've seen a lot of footage from him in the France setup, where he leads and the way he orchestrates. I think he can handle the pressure. But it could also be someone that we're not seeing because we're not noticing those kind of leadership skills. But I think it does drown Maguire. So I would get rid as captain, but look, I still think he's a very good player. I think there's a very good player in Harry Maguire. It just needs the right manager and system to unlock that from him.
Yeah.
So what's your first question for me?
I didn't do my homework. I only have one, but
Okay.
like literally on the spot, you've already said you kind of whatever, just kind of went back and forth and was like, well, Reece James is great and Trent Alexander-Arnold is great, but like really, who do you like more? Who's better to you? Like if you had to choose between Reece James and Trent Alexander-Arnold right now, and you're like, do or die, I need to pick the right back right now. Who is it? Don't be afraid.
I ain't afraid. I would pick right
No dance
now
around it.
Reece James. I don't think he's way better. I don't think he's miles clear. What I like about Reece James is that versatility. And the reason I like that, and I'm talking from a Man United perspective, we chop and change the way we play football depending on the manager. I've got the evidence in me to see that Reece James could adapt to that more. I think he could play in the centre back role, right back role, full back role. Some are talking about him playing more advanced as he moves forward. I think he can play more defensively if you have to rely on his defensive skills because your system needs that. Reece James can do it. I don't know if you can with Trent, not because we haven't seen him do it. We haven't seen a system where his defensive attributes are the most important thing about him. The problem you've got here is you're making me pick between two amazing things, and everyone will hear it as, Terry just said Trent's crap. I'm not saying he's crap. And someone here says, look, Trent can defend. I'm not suggesting he can't defend. So if I'm weighing it up now, I would say Reece James' defending ceiling, like ability, where he could get to is about a 9 out of 10 with defending. I think it could be that good. I think on an attacking point of view, 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Trent is a 10 on attacking, and I'll give his defending about a 7.5. It's marginal. That's all it comes down to. Technique, I think Trent's slightly better. But overall balance, I just prefer Reece James. And all I can say about that is I think they're both amazing, but I would go with Reece James.
Okay.
And you've already answered yours. But I said that a few weeks ago on Friday night on the Terrace as well. And again, a lot of people want to attack you for it, but I'm only ever going to give my true opinion. By the way, if Trent was offered to me at Man United and so AW being bringing Trent, I'd take him every single day of the week, 5 times on a Sunday. Like I would swap him out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
like I'm not saying he's bad, but if I had the two of them there and I had to pick one, and by the way, if my club played football like Jurgen Klopp, I'd probably go with Trent. I would, but I'm just thinking about it I'm trying to be logical with a hypothetical, which is kind of weird in itself, but there we go. AMT says, for me, it's James because he's fearless.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how we feel in a year or so.
Yes.
Because the trajectory of Reece James right now is very, very quick. He's having his year of growth right now. He could stop and Trent could get better, or Reece could continue to get better. And we're looking at Trent like, are you going to get any better? Like, these are still really young players. I would expect them to keep going.
That's a really good point, though, as well. You know, we've got to remember Trent has 50 assists and he's just turning 23. That's more than Dani Alves has in his entire career, I believe. Yeah. I read that somewhere the other day, which is amazing. And he had got 3 or 4 seasons of doing it at this level, which with Reece, you do have that one risk, as you say, that in 2 to 3 years' time, he's leveled out and he isn't where you expect him to be. There is that in it. And now I'm changing my mind. Now I'm going, I never really thought about it like that. That wasn't in my train of thought. And now I am. And I'm thinking, actually, should you wait another year, 18 months on Reece James to see that consistency of being more balanced? Or do you take that risk and go with it now? Oh, wow.
My reasonings are more just based on I like Reece James' profile better. You know, if I just had to pick a right back, that's the type of right back that I would prefer.
You said profile.
I said profile, exactly. Player profile. There we go. Exactly.
I love it. I love
Get
it.
with
I
it.
love it. I love it. I love it. Let's see what some of the comments are saying here. I'm always intrigued to know what they're saying here. Fake stat: Trent has Salah up front. Well, it's a real, yeah, but that's not. Hang on a minute. Dani Alves, you're telling me he wasn't feeding the balls into elite level strikers like Neymar, like Lionel Messi? Come on, bruv. Come on, G. Lionel Messi, Neymar, Suarez.
But take out assists and then look at what his stats are for just chances created. You can always look at if you don't have lethal strikers and you know people are messing up the chances, you can always look at chances created. I'm sure they're quite high.
Yeah, listen, like at the end of the day, like it's again, Dani Alves was amazing and everything else. And like someone said to me the other day, our Trent's assist stats, so they're manipulated, and I'm like, oh, how's that? He went, oh, he takes. This is one of the worst takes in football, because he takes corners and free kicks. So you're going to discount. So that makes him that element of his game makes him better than Dani Alves then, because if Dani Alves was the best crosser in his team, in fact, if Dani Alves could cross as good as Trent, he would have taken free kicks and corners for Barcelona, in my opinion. Trent Alexander-Arnold is one of the best crossers of a ball I have ever seen in football. So therefore, he takes free kicks and corners. It's not something to discount him with. Do you understand where I'm coming from? I find it really... Like people do it with penalties. He's only got like an extra 10 goals. He's the best penalty taker at his club. But your guy's a trash penalty taker. That's a negative for your guy. You can't remove that from...
It's going back to Bruno, guys. It's going back to Bruno.
I ain't mentioning that name. I ain't mentioning that name.
It's going back to Bruno.
But it's true, though. It's true. It ain't my fault your guy's a bad penalty taker. Trent has a chance to beat Giggs's record. He does have a chance to beat Giggs's record. He absolutely does. And he may very well do it. But equally, with Trent, there is still a question mark under Trent. And I know Liverpool, let's see what he's like when Klopp leaves. And I'm not suggesting he's going to... No, I'm being serious, because who's the new manager? What is his system going to be? Will that... And I'm talking about his assist stats here. What if the new manager's style and football evolves by then, and the creativity isn't coming from fullbacks and it's coming through the center again? Like if Trent was playing football in a top team during the pomp of the number 10, the David Silvas, the Ozils, well, far more of the play and the final balls was coming from those guys, either central or drifting out wide, and you were more of a support mechanism. Of course, Trent's crossing ability would have led to him getting assists, but the style of play was different. So my point is, in 3 or 4 years' time, if football change, if you'd have said 5 years ago,
it is going to change,
and it will change, and we don't know into what yet. If you'd have said 5 years ago that fullbacks would be in a lot of top teams in the world would become the chief creators, you would have been laughed at. So therefore, to suggest that in 3-4 years' time, it could be another position on the field of play that's being the chief creator again is idiotic, because no one expected it to ever get to this point. So when it comes to breaking that record, Trent, he's got a hope that fullbacks continue to create at this level when it's part of the systems that are working. Or maybe he moves into a more advanced role under somebody. Who knows? But he's got every chance of beating it because he started off so well. He really has.
And he's a great player, Liverpool.
He is.
He's amazing. Beyond, he's world class. Like, it's fine.
He is.
I just want to make sure you get that in there.
He is here. If both of you could take a player from each of your clubs, who would it be? That's a great quickfire question. Who would you pick, Jess, if you could take one player from Manchester United?
Oh wow. Could use one of the 5 strikers you have. Use one of those. Could use Bruno. Really, we could.
Come on, let's get there. You just say who you want. Get it out. Come on.
I'm gonna take Bruno Fernandes.
Oh, yeah.
Take Bruno
Yeah, that's a
Fernandes, so
matter
Arsenal
saying.
fans would shut up about scoring goals from midfield.
If I could take an
Yeah.
Arsenal player, listen, I think Saka's amazing. I think Emil Smith Rowe has got a huge ceiling, but we have got pure talent in that area already. Pure talent.
Granit Xhaka.
Yeah. Some might say Thomas Partey in the midfield, and that's a really good guess. But I haven't been that impressed with him at Arsenal. Honestly, I'd go with Ramsdale.
That is so.
No, because we need a more modern goalkeeper that's good at coming out from the back and a great shot stopper. We don't have. I mean, De Gea's pulled off some saves recently, but I might go with Ramsdale. Like, there isn't a player that you have in a position that is so superior to one of ours that I would go, I'm bringing you in. Like, Partey.
Don't be silly.
No, like who?
I mean, Thomas Partey may have struggled with injuries, but he is definitely superior
To what? To who?
To Mickey Sauce in the middle.
Okay, yeah, but what I'm saying is that that's a great shout. But if I'm taking one player from Arsenal, I think I'll go for your goalkeeper right now and future-proof our goalkeeping position, because we had bad luck at Man United in terms of replacing good goalkeepers. Thomas Partey hasn't done enough in the Prem yet for me to turn around and go, he's that guy. I'd rather spend 100 million on Declan Rice, if I'm being honest. Do you know what I mean? And whatever. I don't think that's disrespectful. Like, I even praise a player of yours and you're still getting upset. Come on now. Now, listen, Partey's good, but he's not better than Fred. He just isn't. He's not better than Fred.
You guys arrest this man immediately.
He's not better than Fred. He's not. He's on Fred's level. He's on Fred's level in the Prem.
Oh my goodness.
It's a joke, Gooners. It's a joke, Gooners.
Assist
stats. Reece crosses to Werner, whilst Trent crosses to Salah and Mane. Alves in a tiki-taka wasn't had to cut the ball back to Messi. But that's kind of my point to a degree as well, because the style of football that Barcelona played in Alves' pomp was different from how Liverpool are playing now. And again, in 3 to 4 years, football could evolve and go into a new kind of, maybe not even a new way, just go back to something that was old. And suddenly Trent isn't the chief crosser of the ball. He'll still be good at free kicks and still be good at corners. So he's always going to get those kind of stats in that way. But I do hear your point there. That's why it's not just, again, and people say things like Trent evolved the role. I think he did to a degree. But what I would say to that is a slight challenge. There's a lot of good fullbacks coming out of academies in recent years that have all got those kind of attributes. I don't think they started training their fullbacks to do that because they saw Trent. I believe this is something I'd love to ask the question of, like, academy directors. Is this something that multiple football clubs have been training their fullbacks to be able to do? Or was it you saw Trent and then you started working on it? I'd love to, because if they all say, yeah, we saw Trent and we decided to work on it, then the claim there that the claim is then true that you revolutionized it. But I'd like to ask.
The game has kind of been moving towards positionless for a while now, where almost every single person on your team is a midfielder. They can be good on the ball. I don't think that that's anything new. You know, you can kind of look at Cancelo. He's basically a midfielder that's played fullback, and he's older than
Philip
Trent.
Philip Lahm used to do it, where you would see him in sort of DM sort of positions on the ball under Pep's. I think Pep is a key protagonist in this in terms of adding this in.
Exactly.
Why did you say his name like that?
Because you were like Pep, and it was like it's always Pep.
Yeah, Pep was
always Pep.
He was a guy that did it. He did. Which Premier League team has the most hard man to win a fight? Oh, hard man to win a fight. Which 3 players would represent them? So, which team? I don't know. That's a hard question. I never thought about it at all.
Kolasinac from Arsenal.
Yeah, he's an hard man. He's a hard man. I'd probably go at Man United. I'd probably go with Matic. I don't know why. I think maybe it's a Serbian thing. I don't know who's hard at Man United. I mean, Maguire did fight an entire police force, didn't he, or something? We read about one time. So maybe Slabhead. But I'd go with Matic. Liverpool, I'd go Jordan Henderson. You know, that man. I reckon he can have a right tear up. Hendo.
Robertson,
Chelsea.
No.
Yeah. No. Robertson's a weasel. Robertson is like, he's that mouthy little kid, and then the big guy has to come in and help him. Do you get what I mean?
Okay.
I think Hendo's the guy there. Chelsea, who's the hard man at Chelsea?
It's nobody hard at Chelsea. Rudiger?
Nah. Rudiger. Rudiger's the guy, you know. Rudiger would be the one, I think. Rudiger would be the guy. Maybe Konate at Liverpool, but Rudiger would be the dude for me. Tottenham. Højbjerg? Or are we just picking? Are we just picking the holding midfield player? Or no, Højbjerg would be the guy.
I feel like we're picking based on weird reasons that now I'm like, maybe we should be doing this.
What do you mean weird reasons?
Because it's like we picked like the Serbians and these guys.
Hang on, no, we picked one Serbian.
You think? Well, yeah, one. But I was thinking like
Rudiger's
I thought
German.
Kovacic too, because I think that he's pretty.
But he's Croatian,
he could
though.
beat
Is he Croatian or is he Serbian?
Oh yeah, he is Croatian. So
that's I just want to educate you, America. That's a different country.
Oh yeah, you're right. But
Serbia.
Okay, so I would also like to throw in Kovacic.
Kovacic, yeah, he's got a toughness about him. He's got a toughness. I think Højbjerg at Tottenham would be one. I think I can't think of anybody at Tottenham. Someone here says, well, all Eastern Europeans, basically. Well, no, because we picked...
I think that's where I was going towards. I was like, well, you know...
No, but Rudiger's not Eastern European. Well, no, he's not. Rudiger's not Eastern European. He's German.
I picked him because he is...
Højbjerg's Scandinavian, so he's not that. Who else are we going to pick here? Who else? It's a tough one. They're not like they used to be, though, because I used to feel like if someone said who's an hard man in the Prem, it was always Keane. I mean, Lee Catmull was a bit like that. I tell you who I used to like. I don't know why. I didn't like him as a player, maybe not even as a person, really. I've never met him, but the way he come across. Joey Barton was one hard nut.
Oh my gosh!
But he was beyond. Like, you don't want players like that back again. Yeah, far too much in relation to that. Terry can beat them all up. I would fancy myself. I'd fancy myself against all them players in a ruck. All of them.
Kolasinac.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
He wasn't afraid of that knife fight. He's literally
went
up against somebody with a knife. The man is insane.
Yeah, but I was a trained fighter. Like I'd fancy myself.
You haven't fought in years.
No, I'm only messing. But no, yeah. Look, listen. I don't know. I put my spot. It's just a joke because Twisted Bubba said it. Yeah, but thank you. That's a good question. I'm not modern. Cafu and Maicon were doing the same. Again, they were marauding fullbacks. There's no doubt. I think the technique has got better in some of these players now. Rudiger for sure is going to fight dirty. Well, yeah, Rudiger definitely that dude. You know what I mean? Rudiger's throwing that first punch before the man's got his hands out his pocket. 100%.
When I seen him bite Pogba in the Euros, I was like,
yeah. Who else we saying that? Souček at Souček. I mean, we're not. Yeah, Souček at West Ham could be. But I also, do you know how? Do you know who? Do you know who I wouldn't want to get into a ruck with? He's a unit at West. You wouldn't want to get into a Rav Antonio. Now Antonio's got the smiles and he looks cool, but if you make Antonio switch, like, he's a big geezer. He's a big geezer.
Thanks.
Like you don't want someone like that running through your jaw. Do you know what I mean? You're in trouble there. You're absolutely in trouble. There's no doubt about it. Who else are we looking at here? Do you know who else? Again, I wouldn't want to get into a fight with Man United. Who I think would be a bit of a tough guy. Cavani. Cavani gives me that Latino fire, and he's going to be on you. Do you know what I mean? In your face. Like, what are you saying?
We are walking on a very
No, we're not. No, we're not. I've seen him square up to a number of people on the pitch, and he's got that fire. Do you know what I mean? That in his passion, do you know, in his belly. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Is the secret phrase technical director? No. None of them would be able to touch Vinny. Vinny Jones was the hard man. The hard man in football.
We should have one of those tiering ones and not do players, but do managers over the years.
Yeah. But speaking of that, though, I need to ask you a question about Saturday. How embarrassed were you seeing little Arteta try and square out the big man Klopp? As in, try and fight him?
His arms were so short. I was like, oh, I was like, oh, but at the same time, I just feel like he was just out of control. And he's a pretty boy. Let's be real. Like, Arteta's very much like Armani and Dolce & Gabbana and wearing my tight turtleneck. And he didn't want that. He didn't really want that smoke, but I commend him for looking like it. You know how you kind of act like you're gonna fight, but then you wait for like the security guards to get in front of you, and you're like,
yeah. It's like you grabbing his friend's arm and putting it, hold me back, bro, hold me back. You see, like Kevin Hart, when Kevin Hart in his films gets aggressive, but you can tell he don't really want to be aggressive. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, Klopp was sort of looking at him and laughing, like, I will slap you down. But yeah, not tough. Which manager is the top hard man? Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
Sean Dyche. I wouldn't.
Absolutely. He has that ashy voice too, like that one. I'm like, oh yeah, no.
If that man his skin looks dry. If he headbutts you, it's going to be like being headbutted by a bowling ball covered in sandpaper. It's going to absolutely rip you apart. Like a dry forehead. Yeah,
what
Sean
about
Dyche.
Hutel though? Like he wears like weird clothes, but I feel like he might be hard to beat as well.
Maybe. He kind of got that. I didn't think of other managers that are tough that we think would be hard in a fight. Joe, I would love to see. I'd love to see Pep and Arteta fight. That'd be hilarious.
They would never fight each other.
That'd be amazing to watch. But yeah, I'd go with him. Who else would you think's quite tough? Antonio Conte. That man's got fire. I'm not saying he's fire.
He has fire. He's got a lot of like.
But he's like Joe Pesci. He'd be like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. Do you know what I mean? Little but deadly. Do you know what I mean? Where Arteta looks like a little man who's scared. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the mixture there.
Oh my goodness.
For the both of you, if you were the manager of your club, who would be your 3 marquee signings? Can't say 2 players in the same position, i.e. fullbacks, like that means there. So who would be you're managing Arsenal? Who would be your 3 marquee signings?
Need a striker. Probably like Dominic Calvert-Lewin if he comes back from this injury correctly. It's probably a little bit controversial, but for me, until you're like actually in trouble, I just act like you're fine. So I still would take Basuma. I know that's probably like, how dare you, but like he's not in jail. So, I would definitely take Basuma. I still think that was the signing that we should have made, and not making it is hurting us now still. And we need a different type of right back. So I really like James Justin from Leicester. That's somebody that I would look at. I know it's maybe not marquee, but for Arsenal, that would be marquee. That's true. What we do.
Shopping at Audi, innit? Shopping at Audi there. They're good picks. They're good picks. I mean, mine are really simple. Declan Rice in midfield. That's who I would go with. Think he'd kill it. Haaland up front. Haaland, Declan Rice. And I want to go with realistic. So I'm not going to say Van Dijk because we're never going to get him from Liverpool. I would then say Hakimi. Hakimi in the right back role. Decker's in the middle. Haaland through the middle. Mix that in with the top quality already now. Imagine a midfield of Bruno, Van de Beek, Declan Rice feeding the ball into Rashi, Sancho, Haaland.
Oh, Rashi.
Marcus Rashford.
I know, but we have to let that go. We have to let that Rashi thing go.
What, his nickname Rashi?
Rashi.
Well, Rooney was his actual name. Hang on. Rooney was his actual name, you dope.
Not Rooney.
I thought you said Rooney. Oh, Rooney. Oh, he said Rooney. I was like, no, that was his name. That wasn't his name. His name wasn't like Roonford, and we called him Rooney. Rah. No one calls him. Who calls him Bruni?
Oli was out there. Bruni, Rashi, JD.
Like he's calling these kids in from playing outside. Poor Ollie. Can you imagine that, guys? American on the show chatting about football. She didn't think Rooney was his real name. That's the narrative we've got to spin here. Is the phrase 1-0 to the Arsenal? No, it isn't. We haven't hit enough likes either for another clue today. Remember, these are the clues so far for the Football Terrace secret phrase. Arsenal have a connection. Rivals hate it. When it happens to your club, you love it. Tottenham and Liverpool have a big example of this. The Manchester derby and Murta are all the little keywords that can let you know what's going on in relation to that. So there we go. Let's have a look at some more of these comments that are coming through here. Patrick Vieira is like 6'5". Yeah, Vieira was an hard man. Vieira was a hard man. But do you know what's great about Vieira and Roy Keane? They were two hard men in the Prem that were also supremely gifted football players. You know, the one thing I'd say about the Vinnie Joneses and names like Lee Catmull's that get thrown around is they weren't very good footballers, really. They were just hard men. Do you know what I mean? These guys were like that hybrid of being rock hard, but technically gifted footballers as well. They were the guys in teams. Someone's trying there. What's this? Terry, when he messages, Bruno calls him that. when he messages Bruno, he calls him that. Yeah, Bruni. How you doing? How you doing, Bruni? You getting on okay? Bruni. Look at that. Starting up these lies about my club. There we go. But listen, everyone that has tuned in, a massive thank you to each and every single one of you. We're live after PSG Man City later on this evening. There was another guess here for the secret phrase that just came through. It says, is the phrase signing your rivals' star players? No, that isn't the secret phrase. Thank you very, very much for coming on. And guessing, is the phrase billionaire takeover? No, it isn't. It isn't billionaire takeover. But thank you very much for that guess, Young. Really appreciate it. Everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Hit the like before you leave. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure you get over here onto YouTube and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch, make sure you hit the follow button over there. And we'll see you